Okay, so this is going to be my lightning talk. It's going to be real quick. So that's a lightning talk, right? So it'll be good. So just to start off, I just want to introduce myself. My name's Eric Saupe. I am a senior software engineer for Deseret Book. I'm also a member of the Solidus core team, and you can find me online everywhere at Eric Saupe. That's just where I am. So today, really, I just kind of want to talk about Deseret Book's next big project, which is that we're going to be writing our own point of sale system. Yeah, so we're terrified, but it's going to be powered by Solidus in a way. So when I talk about point of sale, what I'm talking about is the thing in the middle, the actual point where people are touching and scanning things. That's the software that we're going to be writing, and it needs to interact with payment terminals. It needs to interact with peripherals like the scanner and the receipt printer. We need authentication to make sure that the people using it are actual real people. And then it needs some kind of like e-commerce backend, or at least some kind of system that can give us pricing, coupons and promos, everything. And they're going to be run on iPads, so we're going to run it with a React PWA is kind of the current goal. I have under there that there's a JavaScript toolbox that allows us to use like reusable code. Joel touched on that earlier when he introduced the Solidus SDK. That is what we'll be using to communicate with Solidus through this whole thing. And it's actually been a really good tool. So if I ever talk about toolbox, I'm talking about a mono repo of JavaScript SDKs that we use to do this kind of thing. So it's going to be React app. It will use Solidus to handle pricing, sales, taxes. Anything that's related to actual selling the product. We're going to use AWS Cognito and Azure Active Directory because IT uses Azure Active Directory and we like AWS, so we had to figure that out. Then we have payment terminals that will actually take the payment, and Bluetooth scanner and printer. So Solidus is going to do all this. I just talked about that. Really, the whole goal of Solidus, though, is just to be sort of like the order ledger. It will power the things to like calculate price. But at the end of the day, we're just kind of like recording sales in Solidus is our current design. Everything that I'm telling you today is like super early days. But I just wanted to kind of introduce this big project that we're working on. Here's our current architecture that we're thinking about going with. We're trying to separate out things as much as we can for security. The stores are all sectioned off into their own little area. Then they only communicate with a point of sale backend that's separate from our current e-commerce backend. They'll be the same stack, but they'll be separate just so that if the point of sale stack goes down, it doesn't affect online and vice versa. We communicate with our payment terminal processor over the internet, obviously, and then we're also going to record the transaction responses in S3. So this is like a really generic diagram of kind of how we're doing it. And I just like everything that I've said is pretty new and fresh, and we're currently it works, I guess is what I'm saying. We actually have the point of sale running. It interacts with Solidus. It calculates tax. It initiates transactions. We can communicate with our payment terminal and record the transaction in Solidus with that response. So everything is actually working right now, but only successes. We haven't done the edge cases for errors yet. So the next phase is that we really we have to pass the certification for our payment terminal stuff. We need to overcome any Solidus hurdles. Like right now it's calculating shipping, and we don't need it to calculate shipping, but that's like one of the things that we need to figure out. Then we're going to put it into our downtown retail store and do just a few small transactions. We're going to use it at a pop-up event. And so that's pretty much it. But what I do want to say is if anybody has any experience with point of sales or is interested in the craziness that we're doing, please come talk to me because I'm interested to talk to you. So that's it. Thank you.
I'm Matthew Bass. I work for Candle Science. And we ship candle making supplies all over the country, everything from wicks in envelopes all the way up to entire truckloads of wax. So we have to do a lot of shipping quotes. And we want to do them fast, and hitting the UPS API doesn't always work. Sometimes it goes down, and when it goes down, we can't quote rates to our customers. So we needed a fast way to do that. So we decided caching was one option, but of course, that's not always going to work when you have so many different possible addresses. So what we came up with was a system that we dubbed Luke for local UPS quoting. And we basically took, we created a non-API calculator, and we took oh, it's not even showing up. All right, give me a minute. All right. So we created this non-API calculator. It's just a calculator like any other. For the compute package method, we are calling this Luke service that we wrote, and it looks like this. So basically what we did was we took a bunch of the data that UPS publishes on their website. They publish an entire table of shipping rates and shipping zones and surcharges, all that kind of stuff. And we wrote some rate tasks that suck all that into our database. And so then all we have to do is find the shipping zone based on the address that the customer entered. We iterate over all the packages in their shipment. We calculate billable weight. We do that taking dimensional weight into account, since UPS charges extra for large, light packages. And then we look up a shipping rate in our table, and we're pretty much done. Down here we sum up the base rate along with the residential surcharge, the peak surcharge, all those other surcharges that UPS tax on. And we come up with a rate that we return and display to the customer. And it's really fast, and we don't have to rely on the API. So the API can go down as much as it wants to. And what we do is to check our work at the very end when the customer has placed their order, asynchronously in a background job, we hit the UPS API, query it with all the same data, and check that the rate that they give us matches what we calculated. And if it doesn't, then we flag it and send ourselves an email to investigate. But it's been working pretty well. We built a similar system for the post office, and this is what the rate task looks like. To import the rates table, it just calls out to this parser, which does a bunch of complicated parsing stuff because the file that UPS provides kind of sucks. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions or want to talk about it anymore, just hit me up. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Shaping an organization with the right reports. I'm Rob Kellas, VP Digital for Deseret Book. And first observation, when you're a data steward for a business, you're an influencer. And when I first joined Deseret Book, I was given PG admin and said, hey, people need reports, just go query the database. And it would be like a recurring thing, and it was annoying as can be. And this was on a legacy system before we went on to Spree. And I got really sick of it. So I just made my own little reporting system that people can go to. And there's lots of different things on here. And I soon realized that not only did this make my job a whole lot easier, it also started to direct the way people think. We all have a lot of data with Solidus and with our e-commerce platforms, and there's a lot of good you can do in your business with that. And observation number 2 is people who need a report often can't communicate what information they really need. There's actually kind of like an interview process when people say, hey, I need a report, I just need this. And before you know it, what you're making for them is completely different. So an example is the business only reports on booked revenue, which requires orders to be shipped. My problem is I don't know the impact back orders are having on our bookable revenue. I want to know how much revenue is at stake. And so we had this like really interesting middle ground. We actually have 60,000 saleable SKUs, and we have a bunch of orders coming and going. We have a warehouse that's 40,000 square foot, and there's a lot of back and forth going with our orders. We have a supply chain team who are trying to get things. We have a whole bunch of problems, but they have trying to reorder a product that's going out of stock, and there's a bunch of problems. And so the question was, hey, I just want to know how much revenue is in, at any given time, how much revenue is on back order. So instead of just coming up with a query and saying this much revenue, I threw a report on that was able to help people kind of explore what's going on, right? So I've had to redact this for obvious reasons, but what you can do is you can choose a period of time, and you can look and see the fulfillment status overview by stock location. And we have lots of different stock locations, but the main ones is Deseret Book, which is our warehouse. We have digital, which everything gets fulfilled immediately. And then we have the call center as well, which do fulfill things as well. So what I did is I kind of broke that all out, so you can kind of see the quantity, the sales, average price per unit, estimated cost. Cost is an interesting one because our metrics are gauged off margin, which is pretty typical for retail. And then you can jump into each fulfillment status by stock location, and you can look and see what particular products are holding things back. So you can see how much quantity has been back ordered, what sales that accounts for, how many orders this impacts, and then look at the count on hand for what you have right now for that, even though it's on back order. And then you can view the orders, and our CSR team, customer success team, can go in, and if they see some things that actually won't be back ordered, which happens more frequently than we'd like, they can go in and view the orders and quickly send those guys an email saying, sorry. So this is my only real point, is that when developers only deliver on what was asked of them, the results are worse. And that's really it. There's some examples of what happens when all you do is deliver on what was asked of you. So that's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Just want to give a quick introduction to myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gregor MacDougall. I have been a member of the Solidus core team since day 0. With me is Alberto Vena. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Alberto Vena. I am co-founder of Nebula and one of the core team members.
We're here just to talk a little bit about, in a not quite so lightning talk, a little bit about the Solidus roadmap that's upcoming. I did want to mention some other things before we get started. I'm really into Mario Maker right now, so if you have any Mario Maker levels that you want world records set on, please message me in the Solidus Slack. I will do my best on my plane ride home. We're really happy to be out here for Salt Lake City for SolidusConf again. One of the things that's been coming up recently in the community is, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Solidus has made a lot of progress in the years and years since it first began. We've stabilized the platform. We've done a lot of work in order to improve the lives of people who are running stores on a daily basis. But I don't think any of us in this room are currently happy with 100% of everything that Solidus does. We need to try and continue to improve the platform, continue to evolve the platform, and take this platform to a state where it is not a platform that's going to stagnate. It brings us to a point that we want to be in the future. So with the core team, combined with the various ambassadors and stakeholders on the project, have been coming up with a Solidus roadmap that we're here to give you a little bit of a teaser on the first things that we're going to be looking at implementing.
Yeah, this is the process that we've done to create tasks for the roadmap. Well, we firstly analyzed market trends, which are basically buzzwords that we will listen to during next years. And for example, for the admin, there's this trend of introducing headless CMS or GDPR for Europe, and I-89 and wrapper stuff. Or for example, other other stuff for business growth, which are probably things that will not be really used by everyone, but will be some important factors when people choose which platform to use.
Just want to go back to that one just for a sec. I just want to reiterate on this one is that a lot of these things that are features in here, these are key things that some people need, other people don't care about. But these are key differentiating decisions, is that if I'm looking at platforms and I'm looking at Solidus versus something else, and I see that this Solidus supports what it supports, and this other thing supports most of the things that Solidus does, plus it supports modern payment methods, subscriptions, and voice search. These are the types of things that developers, decision makers, and people who are looking for the next platform that they're going to be developing, if they see something that supports some of these things where Solidus looks like it's fallen behind in this regard, they're going to choose the other platform. These are key things that I think that you look at some of these things. We've had a lot of talks about some of the things like voice search and how important that is for SEO, how important this is for driving your sales. That if we can find ways to be able to allow Solidus to continue on adding its functionality in order to meet some of these key differentiating points that will allow us to further differentiate ourselves from the competition and other platforms that people might be looking to use, and make Solidus a more appealing target for people to continue to adopt, as well as a more appealing platform for people who are already using Solidus. From the tech side as well, again, we've had talks about progressive web applications, API-driven stuff. This is all the key things that are important for our developer point of views in order to make Solidus allow us to develop the types of websites that are desired today by people who are looking to provide a storefront. When Spree was first designed and when Solidus was first forked, the entire web was a very different space. People browsed on desktops on big giant CRT monitors or something like that. People now don't use the web the same way. So much of the traffic is on mobile. If you have ever looked at the analytics of your store, I'm sure you're probably as surprised as me, like, hang on, what percentage of our people are coming onto this thing from their mobile device? It still shocks me every day I look at it. This is continuing to adapt our tech in order to be able to make Solidus even more relevant for the modern web is one of the biggest things that we can focus on in the near future.
Yeah, then we analyzed the market size, and we've taken into account this blog post, which is very valid from Pipe Candy, which has been updated this year, so it's probably very valid. And we found out that there's the biggest part of the share is taken by a smaller store, which do less than 1 million yearly, while the distribution continue with other stores that are less but do more. And we try to calculate how much this revenue could be, and we've taken an optimistic approach for the smaller store by multiplying the number of companies in that block by the upper bound of the range, so 1 million, and doing a pessimistic approach for the other blocks. So this is the worst scenario for Solidus. And what we found out is that the revenue for a smaller store are less than the revenue for a bigger one. And Solidus is here right now. The average revenue for Solidus store is there. And we have taken this number from our client, from the service that we submitted into the Slack channel some time ago, and from online financial statements, also from Oler.com data. And one important thing to say is that we only consider stores that do 100% web sale. So data should be free from store that have a lot of physical point of sale. And so what we can say from these things, we have a lot of opportunities in that part of the market because a lot of revenues are coming from there, and we probably don't have the resource to compete with platforms that are targeting smaller store. So I like to think that we are not doing wrong, and it's okay to target big stores for Solidus. But we still have to discover which features do they want, and if big stores that right now are on that revenue average started with less than 1 million. So should we add feature to Solidus that tries to target also those kind of stores and hope that they grow until they become perfect for a perfect match with Solidus. We also analyze competitors. We split competitors into two blocks, direct and indirect. Direct are open source, not software as a service platforms, with the focus on code quality, community, and customization in mind. And these competitors are the one listed, and the indirect are one that has a pricing model or are software as a service. So we compile a list of features that they have. Don't try to read them. For some reason, it's also in Italian. So anyway, we split feature into 4 categories, and we try to analyze all those platforms. And of course, we can consider all of the features in there because it's impossible to compare and create something similar for Solidus. We have to choose. We have to focus on something, and we have done some stupid formula on Excel. Basically, if the number of indirect competitors is more than 4, or the number of direct competitor is more than 1, we'll take into account that feature. That's the basic idea. One example is communicating the success stories or case studies. We have 9 indirect competitors doing that, and 4 direct competitors doing that. So let's take it. Multi-sales channel and omni-channels support, 2 indirect competitors and 0 direct. So let's not take it. But let's try not to make this process too robotic, because we have to put some gut feeling in there. And so, for example, the demo on the website, we have 4 indirect that do that, and 1 direct. But we think that it's a no-brainer doing that, so we'll take it anyway. Or another example is Team Store. We have 7 indirect competitors doing that and 0 direct, but so we should take that, but we're not going to take that because we don't want teams in our platforms. please.
Sure. This is just a bit of a teaser for where we're going to be going in the future and how we've chosen to do this. I say we. I should mention that Alberto did all the work on this, and I'm just here to take credit for it. So, I personally accept your thanks if you're very happy with what you've seen so far. But this is a starting point for what we're going to be discussing over the next few days, next few weeks and months and things like that. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we're going to be having a meeting of any of the people who are interested and involved in the future of Solidus to be able to go over what we've defined as a starting point for the roadmap. What we're looking for are people to offer suggestions and contributions for things that we should focus on first, things that are less important, things that we forgot about that definitely need to be on there, and even more importantly than that, things that are important for you and your business right now that you would be willing to say, you know what, I really want this, or I have 80% of this that I'm willing to share with the community right now. We can work on this together over the hack days, over the next 2 days, over the coming weeks and months as we continue to try and bring this the progress of this platform forward.
Yeah, so to create this task, which are an initial draft of the roadmap, we have taken items from all these analysis that we've done, and we created a Trello board with all these tasks. You can take a look at the roadmap. I can share the link even right now, or we can talk tomorrow better. Anyway, there's a lot of tasks in there, and yeah, we'll talk tomorrow better how to prioritize them and integrate more tasks that make sense for the community.
Yeah, Alberto has a lot of work to be that he put into analyzing the results from the survey that we're talked about. We're going to go over all that tomorrow. We're going to go over the roadmap in detail. Love to have your input, even just to be there, listen, learn about what we want to do with the platform going forward. And thanks to Alberto and all the team at Nebulab for putting this together. Thanks to anybody who responded to the survey, and I hope that we're putting together a roadmap that's going to define the future of Solidus that brings the platform to the place where we all want it to be.
Thank you.